Lukas Derksen. Thank you for joining me.
Bora, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Lukas, could you walk us through the origin story of Freaks of Nature with Kelly Slater? What sparked the idea?
Absolutely. It's a bit of a personal one, to be honest with you, on multiple fronts. As many of us during the pandemic, we looked for an escape, and my wife had the brilliant idea to relocate ourselves and my four boys to Nicaragua, of all places. We all love to surf and love to be in the outdoors, and 3 months became 3 years, and thank God my partners were okay with that. But what was exciting is like I spent obviously a lot of time in the outdoors surfing. Not tell from a podcast, but I'm a North European gentleman, so I'm not blessed with an incredibly great skin. And spending a lot of time in the water in Nicaragua is obviously tough. On top of that, unfortunately, we uncovered, while we are in Nicaragua, that one of my children had an autoimmune disease that made him have a very, very sensitive skin. So we had to constantly cover him up with a lot of SPFs and protection. So the idea was born really in Nicaragua. After going back and forth with the U.S. a couple of times and walking the aisles of the REIs of this world, I was just really surprised that there is not a skincare business that's really catering to an outdoor consumer. And after we were started digging into obviously that sort of tension, we quite quickly realized that there's a huge uptick, especially during the pandemic, but even still today, right, in outdoor participation. So we saw about 164 million Americans picking up, some kind of outdoor activity or sport over the pandemic. And what's interesting is that at the same time, we saw this big rise in concerns around skin health, right? And so that clearly created a really interesting tension that we felt nobody had really solved for at that point in time.
Yeah. So, how did you connect with Kelly Slater to get that started?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we wanted to create really a product for athletes. And so, if you want to create something for athletes, while just like yourself, I'm a recreational surfer and I love to surf, but I can't call myself a top athlete. And we know that athletes are incredibly influential because they're just very credible, right? And especially an individual like Kelly Slater, who represents a lot of the values that we want to represent in this business, and that we always saw as the main thesis for the business, which is somebody who's incredibly high performing, but at the same time also cares deeply, deeply about first and foremost what he puts in his body and on his body. Kelly is incredible about doing his own research, and obviously he's created an immense longevity in his career as an athlete, and therefore he's very concerned with what he puts in and on his body, and also of course cares deeply about the environment that we operate in, right, as athletes, as outdoor athletes. So that stood out for us, and obviously Kelly has an incredible loyal following as well. So we felt the need to bring somebody like himself on board, not just as a spokesperson, but literally when we were conceiving the product. So Kelly came on as a co-founder of the business very early on, and was deeply involved in product development.
Hmm. Well, Lukas, you're skipping some important parts. I'm not going to let you do that. So, what I like to do on the podcast is a lot of people want to start their own brands, and so I like to kind of get into the nitty gritty, going from idea to first sale, and kind of like trying to educate people on the steps. So you came up with the idea, and then I'm sure 1,000 people are hitting up Kelly Slater about his skincare product. Why were you chosen? What's special about you?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and I can't argue that as always a little bit of timing and luck is important as well. But I think Kelly was, to your point, approached many 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 times by sunscreen brands because it makes so much sense, or skincare businesses. The reality is that again, Kelly is just deeply concerned what he puts on his body, and his observation was that most sunscreens out there he would never put on his skin. And the scientific literature is out there that a lot of these chemical filters can have negative impacts on you as an individual. Now, to what extent, I think there's still, different opinions out there. I always say to everybody, right, like it's better to put any sunscreen and sunblock on your body than nothing, because you're really exposing yourself. But if you're critical of what you put on your body and you don't want any disruption, hormonal disruption, anything to really go through the skin barrier, you want to make sure that you're using, the right materials. And one of the reasons why Kelly was obsessed with what we were doing is because we came at it from a very scientific angle, right? And so as we're talking to founders in your podcast, I think first and foremost, we identified an incredible inside tension that we want to solve for, right? So that was great. People are going outdoors, en masse, and they're experiencing skin health issues. Now, the second step to that is, how do you solve for that need in a very, very credible way, right? So we brought on Dr. Elsa Jungmann as I was getting very obsessed around, the skin barrier function and what it does to you as an outdoor athlete. I came across Dr. Elsa Jungmann, who holds a PhD in the field of skin barrier function, specifically the skin microbiome. And I came to learn that, that we're more microbial and fungal than we are actually human cells, right? So there's these trillions of things living in and on our body that have a constant interaction with our physical body and our overall healthy state. And it's really the skin microbiome that's the unlock to have the strongest first line of defense when you're out there as an outdoor athlete. And so it's this scientific approach that really got us to the development of these products. And Kelly, always wanted to take this from a very scientific angle, and really wanted to be very informed by the science and the literature. So Dr. Elsa Jungmann, I think, was a big breakthrough for him as well. And then, of course, with that came the actual functionality of the product, right? We showed a real intent to Kelly as a team to want to solve something for athletes and not just create another skincare brand, because there's plenty of them.
Mm-hmm. Lukas, that's amazing. So let's fast forward a little bit now, but just only a little bit. So now we met Kelly, we have the idea, we have the PhD with us, the science is there. So now we have to make a product. So you have 3 products now. Which one was the first one? How did you decide which product had to be developed first? And how did you test it as the next step?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And this is obviously a journey that took us, lots of highs and lows. But I think, there's a couple of things that we identified within.
Quickly, how long was the journey?
The journey was all in all 2 years, about 24 months. Yeah. So 2.5 years, I would say, until we got to market. And for those who are in skincare, know that sunscreen is an OTC product, and therefore, a heavy regulated environment. So it's very tough to innovate. But, we saw 2 things that we believed were challenging in the sunscreen business, especially for athletes. One was water resistancy in these products is often created with microplastic. So people encapsulate the actual functional filter for sun with a plastic encapsulation. And those are the microplastics, that end up either in the environment, in your body, or both. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to replace those plastics with plant-based polymers. And that took a lot of trial and error to get that right. But I can proudly say that both of our sunscreens purely have a plant-based solution, both on the 40-minute water resistancy as well as the 80-minute water resistancy. But you have to understand that in skincare and sunscreen, every time you do a water resistancy test, you either fail or you succeed. Most of the time, in the beginning, you fail. You have to reformulate, recruit new people, etc. So it's a very elaborate and time and also cost-intensive process. So that was, water resistancy was a big thing we wanted to solve in the right way. And then, a lot of people talk about 100% mineral, and obviously, we believe that mineral filters are much better than our organic filters, or chemical filters, as some people refer to them incorrectly. But the reality is that a lot of the quote unquote 100% mineral sunscreens are not actually 100% mineral sunscreens. They use often a material called BOS, which is effectively a sort of gray area FDA regulated ingredient that's used by 87% of all 100% mineral claimed sunscreens. So the reason they do that is because they want to make sure that they don't have too much white cast. And so we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to optimize for the sensorial part of it. So, not make people look like white ghosts, but at the same time, stick to 100% minerals and only have a 100% natural formula. So this took a lot of time. I'm not going to lie. And the other thing, people don't realize is when you put a mineral sunscreen on your face, it actually has, minerals are antimicrobial to start with. So zinc, for example, is a highly antimicrobial substance. And that kills, bad bacteria, but it also kills a lot of good bacteria. And your skin microbiome is full of bacteria that are most of the time good for you. So that zinc is really messing with your skin microbiome. So we went also with Dr. El Zilman on this incredible journey, trying to figure out how to mitigate that impact of zinc, which is inevitably also the mineral that we're using, and its impact on your skin microbiome. So there's a material, bee silk, which is a biosynthesized spider silk that comes from an incredible company called Bolt Threads that is exclusive to us for sunscreens. And what it does, it kind of elevates the zinc from the skin microbiome and creates this incredible sensorial finish, but also mitigates a lot of the impact of the zinc on your face. So that was very much the sunscreen journey. And then so we came out with an SPF 30 and an SPF 50. And the reason why we had two products, the SPF 30 is really a 40-minute water resistancy, again, taking the athlete community into mind, which is, you might be in your everyday, decide to go on a run spontaneously or go for a quick swim or whatever your training choice is. You want to be protected and don't think about it. And the SPF 30 always got you covered, but it's a lighter product and you can wear it daily. Like I, for example, wear it right now, and it has minimal white cast, if not any. But then, of course, people like yourself and myself, we love to surf. And if you're going for a long haul in the middle of the sun for 2 hours, you need something more powerful and stronger. Mm-hmm. That's why we developed the SPF 50, which is an 80-minute water resistancy product and has a higher SPF. Now, when it comes to our launch product, those were our two launch products, the sunscreens. But we also knew that you have to strength train your skin in the times that you're not working out, and that's where the moisturizer comes in play. And so the moisturizer is really a biohacking serum that allows you to increase the biodiversity on your skin microbiome. And we actually just concluded an incredible piece of clinical work that we're launching in the next 2 weeks to talk about this clinical result and how we're increasing basically the biodiversity of your skin microbiome. And that, again, gives you sort of that natural first line of defense as you're going in the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did not know zinc was bad for you because, I was just putting on surf mud, which is all zinc, prior to discovering freaks of nature. So it's interesting, actually. You were talking about the water resistance, and it has an interesting texture. It's kind of thick. It stays on, for a long time compared to some of the other stuff that I used. So that's interesting. And it's just so important because I feel like, especially professional surfers, a lot of them who've been around, they look 10 years older than they are because of the crow's feet. And I'm like, exactly. I don't want to look like that. I really need to. So I kind of prefer surfing when it's cloudy and not just so sunny. And I like cold places like where I am right now. But totally. Okay, so that's so interesting. So now one thing I wanted to ask you, Lukas, this is important. A lot of people kind of come up with ideas. I want to start a brand in like supplements or some kind of health foods or skincare or something like that. But then especially in the areas where science is important, you described a lot of scientific things. Did you learn all of that during the research, or did you already know some of it before? Like, what was the education process for yourself here?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I'll make a quick sidestep here to the organization that incubated Freaks of Nature, which is Squared Circles, the venture studio that I run with two of my co-founders. And what we've observed in the world is that there are a lot of consumers like yourself, probably, definitely like us, who constantly are looking for indulging themselves in everything that life has to offer, from the foods you want to eat, surf, go in the outdoors, travel where you want to travel. So this very maximalist lifestyle. But at the same time, you're increasingly conscious about what you put in your body, on your body, and also what you put into the world, right? So there's this incredible surge of people wanting to do better for their health and better for the health of the planet. And we call this phenomenon conscious maximalism. It's a really interesting tension. And we've done a lot of research and work around this particular consumer and this mindset. And we've identified about 46 million people in the US live in this tension of wanting to do better for themselves and planet, but also want to indulge in life. And what we've observed and what kind of the mode is of our venture studio is that a lot of scientific IP can solve for that tension. Being it new ingredients, being it new materials in everyday consumer products. And so that's really our mode as a venture studio. And so in terms of the science, we're not scientists, but we're incredibly curious minds and have surrounded ourselves with a science board. So individuals who come from various different backgrounds. Elsa Jungmann happens to be a great example of one of those, where they're educating us on where health and wellness is moving, and what the opportune areas are for scientific innovation. And again, we don't develop the IP ourselves, but we're constantly scouring the world through this network of scientists, but also universities, other venture studios, and VCs. For this new piece of IP, of scientific IP that we can help commercialize. Because the other thing that we have uncovered is that a lot of scientists have incredible ideas, but are not so great at bringing them to the world and convincing consumers to use them. So the role that we play as a venture studio is very much in translating that science into culture, as we like to refer to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the main theme here that stands out for our listeners is curiosity, which is really important. A conversation I had in one of our previous episodes with the co-founder of Serenity Kids, Joe Carr, and he talked about when they were starting the baby food brand, his wife had a summer of nerddom, he describes, which I really liked. All summer she studied all the brands that's in the market, their ingredients, what she didn't like, and kind of identified opportunities in terms of an ingredients perspective. So it could be really intimidating to people. Oh yeah, this sounds like a lot of complicated stuff. I know nothing about it. I can never start a business in that. But people are doing it. So you just need to be curious. You need to study. And then, go from there. So, Lukas, let's go into testing. Did Kelly test the whole thing all by himself before you went to, and then you just said that, whatever he says, or did you actually have a group of testers? How did you find them? How did that process go, where you sent the formulation to the formulator, and then kind of how many back and forths had to happen before a marketable product came to you?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It still gives me a little bit of PTSD, if I'm really honest. But but I had the luck that I was living between, or still are living between, Nicaragua and New York, and so I had this constant influx of tourists, friends, family, but also pure strangers coming to Nicaragua, which obviously incredibly exotic and hot place to surf and do all kinds of other outdoor activities. So I had my team in New York who were developing the formulas, and I took all those formulas constantly to Nicaragua to test them with all kinds of athletes, both professional ones, and obviously Kelly being the prime example, but also everyday athletes, recreational athletes like ourselves. So, or at least I say ourselves. Maybe you're a professional and I just don't know it, but at least I'm recreational. But yeah, so constantly getting feedback, and I think in this instance, it was always looking at the perfect crossroads or tension between having a product that's sensorially pleasing, and is highly, highly performing, right? Because to your earlier point, I've also used, many of the big pasty zinc, solutions, and I'm not saying that anything is wrong with those. It's just the reality is a lot of individuals just don't like to have this big layers on their face that are hard to get off, that stain your clothes and what have you. And
It
so we were
stays. Does
looking.
it also cause acne because it clogs the
Exactly.
pores?
It clogs the pores, and more importantly, for an athlete, it also traps heat. So I don't know if you've ever had this sensation, but if you're, for example, surfing with thick layers of zinc on your face, you have this sensation that your face is really hot. Sometimes you're like, "Wow, I'm actually burning," but it's really the trapping of the heat that's happening in your face. So the feedback that we've got so far from most athletes, especially for example runners, we've had a lot of traction in the running community, is exactly that. They feel it's very lightweight and very breathable as a product, which is very much liked. But yeah, so we tested a tremendous amount of formulas. I believe the count for the sunscreens was at 52.
Count what? 52 what?
52 formulas that
Wow,
we've gone through.
52 back
Yeah,
and forths. And how long
exactly.
does it take for each back and forth?
Well, I mean, of course, you get closer and closer, right? So the iterations become, smaller and smaller. But in the beginning days, I think we've gone through at least 10, 15 formulas that we've pretty much thrown away and started all over again. And we've experimented with so many different ingredients, and I think as sort of for your listeners and people that are developing new things, I think what a big learning is from this process is, on the one hand, you want to be as innovative and progressive as possible with your formulation, but there is a reality to that, right? One of the realities is that not all of these ingredients are tried and tested, so you have to kind of find out for yourself. Two, there are often small suppliers that are looking to scale as well, right? So the challenge is that if you're setting up a business that you're hoping to scale, which obviously everybody wants, you want to make sure that your ingredient suppliers can scale with you, right? And so we've uncovered things that we thought were incredible, but then after double clicking on it, we just realized that partners like that are just not ready for where we want to take the business and the brand. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of research, a lot of exploration, and then we also wanted to make sure the science made sense, right? So in every step of the way, we had Dr. Elsa Human involved to make sure that our formulas were bio-based, that they were not harming the skin microbiome. So we were constantly testing the skin microbiome as well. She has a fantastic platform herself, which is called Hello Biome, which allows you to swap your skin. And then she has a AI-driven data analytics platform that analyzes your skin microbiome on your skin. And we test, multiple points in time to see how the skin microbiome reacts to some of these solutions. To give an example, we tested myself swimming in the oceans of Nicaragua, and even after 2-3 days of washing myself, we would still find a ton of oceanic material in my skin microbiome, organisms that are living, inside your own skin microbiome.
She was testing on your skin?
Yes, correct.
How?
So we would swap it, and I would send it in. We're going to actually sell this test soon as well, so consumers can do this for themselves. But it's a swap not too dissimilar to how you would swap your nose for example, a COVID test.
Yeah.
And you send in the material in a sealed, proper bag, and she analyzes it for you and gives you a health score of your skin microbiome. And so you can do that multiple times in time and have an analysis of how your skin microbiome is improving or getting worse, depending on what you're doing to yourself.
Wow, that's so interesting. I actually tried one for the gut microbiome, one of those tests where you
Nice.
have to kind of then send it back, and then they make you personalized daily supplements as a subscription. So that could be another business for Squared Circles.
100%. Although, I mean, this is pretty much Dr. Elsa Human's business. So she's got an incredible platform built up. And, I really invite people to check out her website, which is hellobiome.com. It's a fantastic business. And she provides this service to multiple skin health businesses.
Okay, Lucas, fast forward to marketing. So now we have our product, we have our celebrity athlete. We've done 52 iterations of the formula. We're feeling good. we set a launch date. It's been, you said 2.5 years, and how much of that 2.5 years have we spent so far? 2 years, 6 months to go?
In terms of the business only launched last May, right? So we're
Yeah.
about 4 months into the business right now.
No, we're now back in time. We're launching the business, right? We're
Fair
in the
enough. Yep.
flashback mode. We finished our formulations. We're feeling good, so we're gonna launch. We set a launch date a few months ahead of us, I guess.
Yes.
What are the
Fair
things
enough.
we still have to do?
Obviously, build an incredible brand, right? And I think, this is very close to home. I come from the brand agency world. I used to have a pretty sizable agency with a bunch of partners called Sid Lee, which was an agency responsible for brands like Adidas, The North Face globally, and what have you. And so brand means a lot to me. Design means an incredible amount to me. So we spend a lot of time designing what we believe is a very unique brand to this community of outdoor athletes. And so we spent a lot of time trying to understand, the history of surf brands, skateboard brands, outdoor brands, all the climbing brands, what have you. And again, spoke with, a lot of influencers in the space as well to get a lot of feedback on, okay, what makes a brand tick. And I was reading an article about Kelly at some point, and the headline was, and this was an older article, but when he just won Pipeline again, it was like Kelly Slater, freak of nature, won Pipeline again. And I was like, wow, that's such an incredible name, actually, freak of nature. And so this started to, sort of live amongst us. And when we then started thinking about, okay, everything we're doing actually for these products is taking things out of nature because everything is natural, or we're mimicking nature in the form of biosynthesis, which are all like freak of nature as well. So we're like, wow, this is a brilliant name. Let's try to coin that. And I'll tell you a little nice anecdote because as often you land on a name and either it's taken from a trademarking standpoint or you can't get the website. So trademark was available. Website was also available for a relatively small amount, which is incredibly unique in this day and age. And it was almost too good to be true, and it turned out to be good to be true. Because interestingly enough, when we launched, it was all hands on deck because all our friends that were in corporate environments such as law firms, big tech companies, etc., were not able to access our website on the day of launch. And what we came to realize was that we actually picked up freaksofnature.com very cheaply. And that was for a reason, because freaksofnature.com was how should I say this nicely, a porn website until 2001, and had sit dormant after this company went bankrupt. So it was blacklisted, by all the securities.
Oh no! Oh no!
So this was hilarious. So it took us a while to, in pure startup fashion, to mitigate this problem. But we got it solved relatively quickly.
How did you get it solved? Oh my God, that's such a problem.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
How would you have known?
Yeah, no, we literally could not have known. We tested everything, obviously, a million times before we put it live, and all our environment was perfectly fine. But thank God we were working with some absolute pros who figured out this issue relatively quickly, and then we had to file it in certain instances. Thank God this is all relatively centralized, so we
Is
got
it
it
like a
fixed relatively quickly.
reputation repair type of a thing? Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yeah. You
Interesting.
just need to get off these security monitors. But it was all in all, I think we got it fixed in like 3 days. But still, typical startup pains, right?
The things you have to learn as an entrepreneur,
That's
which you have ever thought. So, is Freaks of Nature purely DTC e-commerce, or are you thinking retail, Amazon, or other channels?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think in today's context, there is no more D2C brands. And I know it's a big statement, but I think it's incredibly hard in the current context to grow a consumer business D2C. I think, multi-channel is in again. It's a big thing again. I think it's incredibly important that you think about this holistically. Of course, D2C is a fantastic place to learn, and that's where we started out as well. First 3 months, but we're now already diversifying into a lot of other channels. And I will admit, as a marketer, I've been in this business for almost 20 years, marketing brands, and everything changes obviously constantly. And I think, especially today, I have to learn from the incredible team members I have around me as well. that are a lot more dialed into this than I am. And I was always very precious with things like, are we too early to go into retail? Are we too early to go on Amazon? And the reality is you just have to follow where the consumer is. And so we've been rolling out in some what we consider to be specialty retailers, so people that really are strong in the community, so your typical running shop, surf shop, etc. And we're rolling out rather rapidly in the next 2-3 months in those type of places, really surrounding that community in the places that they discover. But then quite quickly, this is also a convenience shopper, right? So you might go, oh, I'm going on a surf trip next week with my mates, and I need sunscreen. I need it tomorrow. I completely forgot about it. I'm ordering it on Amazon, and so we see that people do want to shop these channels too. And retail, I think the experience is back at retail. People post pandemic are increasingly going back to retail. To discover products, to have more context to products. So I think they're all important channels. So we're definitely thinking about this a lot more holistic than just D2C.
Mm-hmm. Lucas, so what are the top 3-4 type of outdoor athletes you're looking to focus on? Obviously surfers, runners.
Yeah, I think the running community, of course, surf community is it's very close to my own heart. Obviously, Kelly is the founder. But we also definitely wanted to make sure that we're not building a surf brand. It just happens to be that if you're surfing, you're really exposing yourself to the natural elements, right? So if it works for surfers, it definitely works, for a lot of other athletes, right? So it's almost like this notion of putting it to the ultimate test. But the running community is also very near and dear to us. I love to run myself. We have a lot of runners in our team. And I think it's important, also as a community, because it's a very accessible athlete community, right? Like, unfortunately, like many people can't surf every day. Running is something you can literally do every day, and you need to protect yourself, right? And so our SPF 30, for example, Beach Silk also is great for pollution. So it has a 100% increase of wash off of pollution. So people that run in urban environments, for example, it's a fantastic product for that too. So runners is a big focus for us, but the outdoors in general, right? So climbing, we had this incredible collaboration with Nina Williams, who gave us a lot of feedback on what it means to use sunscreen when you're hanging off a cliff without ropes, right? So you want to make sure that your fingers, for example, are constantly moisturized because the more dry they are, the more slippery it gets. And so we're constantly trying to learn from these athletes and see how we should talk about our product and how to iterate our product as well.
Mm-hmm. And Lucas, for the creators who are watching and listening, what do you look for in collaborations with creators?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think there's obviously, in the world of influence and collaborations, there's so much of it, right? And so sometimes it's hard to navigate what is right. What we've observed and where we're most excited in collaborating with people is when doesn't matter how big they are. And when I say big, I mean like in terms of following or what have you. It is really about, how authentically do they connect with their community, right? And through testing and learning, we've seen people that have, just a tiny fraction of some of the bigger influencers can move, for example, the needle in terms of real business as much as some of these bigger influencers. But more importantly, a lot of these individuals speak very, very credibly and authentically to their community. They are part of the community. They are, the guy or the girl that organizes the running club in their respective, environment, or they have the cycling crew up in San Francisco. Or I think it's those individuals that we're excited about. But also people, this is actually an interesting find in the athletic communities. Athletes, and this is the Red Bull phenomenon, they've gotten big in content by just showing off what they're doing, which is great, but they're not necessarily always great at talking about a product, such as a sunscreen, right? And I think skinfluencers, that's all they do, right? They're like this, like we are today, talking to a camera, talking about a product in a lot of detail, and athletes are not necessarily always attuned to that. But we see a younger generation of athletes, especially college athletes, that are growing up in the world of TikTok and what have you, and that are very accustomed to on the one hand being in front of a camera talking about a product, but at the same time, of course, also demonstrating their incredible talent in sport.
Great, Lucas. Final question, two parts. Now that it hasn't been that long, right? A few months, only 6 months, maybe. I remember.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months right now.
Yeah. It's so new. So, what are the top two problems giving you a headache right now, and top two priorities for the year?
Yeah, fantastic question. So I think the biggest challenge for us that we thank God solved through the product formulation was the water resistance. This gave me so many nightmares and headaches, and it took us so long to get this right. But the other problem that we had happened post launch and was very painful, which is that's a good lesson I think to the audience as well, or a cautionary tale I should say rather than lesson. But as you have the product in your hand, I don't know if you've noticed, but on the packaging it says this product is 100% made of ocean-bound plastic, right? Mm-hmm. So what that means is that this entire bottle is made of a plastic that's recovered from within 50 miles of the ocean. And because that's the plastic that ends up in the ocean 9 out of 10 times. Now, that has never been done before. It has been done, as let's say 40, 50% of the substance. And then mixed in with virgin plastics, but never has it been 100%. And even more so, we challenged our packaging partner to make the pump and the entire internal mechanism, which is typically metals, also of this 100% upcycled ocean-bound plastic. Now, we came to realize that the spring that rebounds the pump itself, making that of ocean-bound plastic is tough, and so our pump was malfunctioning at launch, and this is very painful. And a lot of consumers, rightfully so, were upset and loved the product, loved everything about it, but this pump was stuck down. Often people had to pull it out to apply the cream. Thank God, again, we have a fantastic team. We've remedied this very quickly and re-engineered it and fixed it. But this was very costly, very painful. And it goes to show that, doing innovative things, doing them sustainable as well, where a consumer actually doesn't always care about. I think our audience cares, but not always cares about, is a big undertaking and is not without risk, right? So I think that was definitely something that gave me many sleepless nights in the first 2 months of the business. But thank God this is all working really well now. And moving forward, I think the two things that I think are super important for us is one, we live and die by the community of athletes, right? We cannot buy. I don't believe you can buy yourself as a brand into meta and buy yourself into success. I think this brand will only succeed if it's adopted by this community of athletes, and they are a hard bunch to convince, right? So we have to lay brick by brick and make sure that we talk to a lot of athletes that we're out there, meeting them where they are, and educating them about their skin, right? Because a lot of individuals do not really understand what it means actually when you're exposing yourself to the elements and the impact it can have on your skin. The wind, if you're in the mountains, it will literally, blow your skin microbiome off your face, and that's why you're, perceiving dryness. Salt water will, as I said, those microbes will live in your skin for days upon days. So it's all these interactions with your skin that ultimately also impact your health that you have to take into consideration. And educating consumers on that and creating that traction in the community, I think, is really important. And the other thing that is very top of mind for us is product innovation, right? So we really believe that there's many barriers that you experience in the outdoors that really hold you from experiencing and enjoying the outdoors. And we want to make sure we can take those barriers away, right? So I will not pull up the entire veil, but we're working on an incredible bug repellency solution. So I think that's something that we're very excited about, which again, a lot of the solve for that product comes from the skin microbiome. But the skin microbiome can be an unlock in so many different ways. To give you an example, this is a bit further out, but we're working with a science team who have uncovered that the skin microbiome under your armpits there are certain bacteria that actually create the smell of your sweat. And they've found a way to replace those bacteria with different bacteria through a topical. And when you apply that, you don't smell for about 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible. And again,
That's
all
crazy.
solved through the skin microbiome, through plant-based material. So there's all that to say. There's a lot of innovation that we're currently working on, and I'm excited to see that come to the world.
Lukas Derksen, thank you for sharing your journey with me.
Absolutely, it was a real pleasure, and I hope I left you with a couple of interesting nuggets today.